Hey guys, in this video I'm going to explain the addEventListener method. We can link an event and a function to an HTML element. Using the addEventListener method is the preferred way of handling events. A benefit is that one element can have several event listeners. Even the same event can invoke different functions. Within my HTML document, I'm going to create a div. Div, close it. I'll give this a unique ID of innerDiv. Eventually, we'll create an outerDiv. Then within my CSS style sheet, I'll select innerDiv. I'll give this a background color of light green, a width of 100, a height of 100, and a border 1 pixel solid is good. Save everything, and here's our div element. Using the addEventListener method, this div element can listen for multiple events. We'll need to select an element. I'll name this const innerDiv equals document.getElementById. We're selecting innerDiv. To add an event listener, you take your element, innerDiv in this case, then invoke the addEventListener method. The first argument is an event. Let's add mouse over. Mouse over, then a function. Let's create a function to change the color red. This will be a callback. Change red. Let's define this function. Function change red. Let's take our innerDiv, take the style, set the background color property equal to red. When I hover my cursor over this div element, it changes red. A benefit of using the addEventListener method is that it's easy to wait for multiple events. So to wait for another event, we can simply invoke the addEventListener method again. This time, we'll also listen for the event of mouse out. Let's create a function to change green. Function change green. Background color equals light green. This div element is listening for two events, mouse over and mouse out. Using the addEventListener method, it's really easy to wait for multiple events. There's one more argument within the addEventListener method. That is the useCapture argument. Suppose we have an element within another element. I'll surround this innerDiv element with another div. Div, the ID will be outerDiv. Be sure to enclose your innerDiv. I'll change the style of outerDiv. I'll get rid of the border. The width and the height will be 200. Save everything. So we have an outerDiv and an innerDiv. The innerDiv element is inside of the outerDiv element. What would happen exactly if both of these elements are waiting for the same event, mouse over? Which event would be handled first? The inner element or the outer element? Well, we can set that with the third argument, the useCapture argument. Let's add an event to the outerDiv. I'll store this within a variable. outerDiv. The ID is outerDiv. I'll eliminate all of this. I'll add an event listener to the innerDiv. Add event listener. The event this time will be click. The function will be changeBlue this time. We'll add the same event to the outerDiv. outerDiv. Add event listener, click changeBlue. Let's define this function, changeBlue. Function changeBlue. We will take this.style.backgroundColor equals light blue. Both of these div elements are doing the same thing, but there's some overlap. The innerDiv element and the outerDiv element are within the same space. So when I click on the innerDiv element, we're also clicking on the outerDiv element at the same time. Which element handles its event first, the inner element or the outer element? Just to test this within the changeBlue function, let's create an alert just to slow things down. You selected, then let's display the ID of the element that is being handled. This.id. Okay, so when I click on this element, we're handling the inner div first before the outer div. But with the outer element, if you pass in another argument true for useCapture, well then we will handle the outer element first before the inner element. So that's what that third argument is, useCapture. If two elements are taking the same space and they're listening for the same event, you could specify which one has preference. Yeah, that's the addEventListener method. It's the preferred way of having an element listen for events. As arguments, you can pass in an event, a function to be executed, and a preference if you would like an outer element to be handled first. So yeah, that's the addEventListener method, everybody.